You're listening to Creatives Crushing Anxiety, the podcast for online business creatives looking to minimize their anxiety and maximize their productivity through systems organization and time management. I'm your host, Dia Darling. Let's do this. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me for this episode of Creatives Crushing Anxiety. Now, we are in part 2 of the Balanced Business Experience and Action series, where I'm going through my methodology and telling you how I use this methodology to buy my first home this year. So, super excited about this episode because I love this methodology. As if you've caught part 1, then you know that I really credit this to my success in buying my dream home. But also, this is something that I feel like is so much easier to see when you're seeing it tangible and it's not just a big idea, or if you're not working through it yourself and you're just listening to maybe the 7-day series without doing the workbook. You really get to see how it works. So, the third step of the methodology, if you have not watched video 1 or listened to that podcast episode, I invite you to go back because I will say it a million times in the series that these steps build upon each other. So, the next step is to look at the challenges. Typically, with the challenges step, you look at what your current reality is and what you say is your values and priorities and how they line up together. So for me, just to kind of recap, I was saying the things that I really wanted in the house, what I wanted to feel, how I wanted to experience things, and that was my priorities. Those were the things that were important to me. And then the current reality, I was talking about the things that I both loved and didn't like about my current reality, my noisy neighbors, having to look for parking, not having like an assigned spot, that sort of thing. Where I go a little bit off of the methodology is with challenges, you typically look at the differences between these two. But in my case, it was very, very apparent what was different. And with buying a house, you look at different kinds of challenges versus the current reality and the values and priorities. You're looking at the challenges that are stopping you from getting to that goal. So I knew with when you want to buy a house, you have to have a certain credit score. You have to have a low debt to income ratio. And what that means, if you're not familiar with that terminology, is what you owe other people needs to be a smaller percentage of how much money you bring in each month. I knew that as a S corp, my income is a little bit different than someone who has worked a 9 to 5 and gets W-2s. I knew that there were things that I needed to pay off. I knew that I needed to save money. So these are the quote unquote challenges that I would need to address in order to make this dream a reality. So once I looked at what those challenges were, what those things that I would need to do are, I went and set the goals. Now, obviously, this may be where, when you're typically going through this process, this is where you would say, okay, based on that current reality, the values and priorities, and then what my challenges are in between those two, what do I want to change? In my situation, it was okay, what are the values that, or what are the goals that I need to create in order to overcome these challenges? And I just want to pause and say, this is what I really, really love about this methodology because while there are steps to go through and there is like a preferred way that you go through them, it is customizable based on what you have going on and what it is you want to accomplish, which a lot of systems aren't like that. They're like, no, you have to follow these, even if it doesn't make sense. So for me, it was very clear that, okay, I have this amount of credit cards, this amount of like debt. What do I want to pay? How do I plan to pay it off? So project management nerd over here, I had a Airtable sheet with all the home stuff. Like I had a tab for zip codes I wanted to live in. I had a tab for projected dates of things, and then I had a debt payoff tab where I would start with the name of the card, how much the balance was, what was the available credit on it, because that is also really important when you're buying a house is having available credit So if you have a credit card that has a $2,000 limit and you have spent 1,900 of that, that isn't good. I decided, okay, I wanted everything to be at least 25% or lower of what the limit was. So just to make this math even simpler, if I had $100 limit on a card, I didn't want to have more than 25 dollars charged on that. So I had that section, what the balance was, what the limit was, when I planned to have it paid off, and each month I would track at the very first of the month, every first of the month I would go in and say, okay, this is the current balance. And I had that due date of like, okay, so I know I want to do the I believe it's the snowball effect. It's the Dave Ramsey term where you like tackle one thing at a time, make one small victory at a time. So I picked either the lowest card balance or the one with the highest interest rate so I could see progress slowly over time. So it was like, okay, yes, I'm paying the minimums on certain cards, but right now I'm making the point to pay an extra $500 a month on the Best Buy card until it's below that 25%. And then I'll tackle MasterCard or whatever it may be. So I started making these kind of goals. And in addition to that, looking at my current reality of knowing how much I was typically bringing in a month, how much I wanted to save each month to go towards the down payment. So this was really, really super powerful for me to have these goals that had time. They were SMART goals. They had like the time, the specifics, like all of the stuff that you would have in SMART goals. And I know I just am like kind of summarizing, so I will make sure to include the definition of SMART goals in the show notes for this episode. But just so you know, so that was the really big part as far as setting those goals. Hey guys, I just wanted to interrupt this episode to talk to you about a platform that I love, and that is Collective. Whether you're trying to buy a new house or you just want to get your business books in order, Collective is the place to go for just getting everything so organized and for saving more on your taxes, which, regardless of what your goals are, we all like to save money. Collective really will take you from scrambling every single tax season and trying to figure out what your monthly estimated taxes are to just everything being streamlined and taken care of for you. And if you use my code, which I'm going to put on the screen here, if you use my code when you sign up for Collective, you get 50% off of your first 2 months. Now, I will say Collective is $200 a month, but it is well worth it. I remember the first time that I heard of Collective, I went to check it out and I was like, oh, I don't have $200 a month to spend. But the truth is, the amount of money that they save you, it totally is worth that $200 a month investment. And you get your first 2 months for only 99. Because they take so much of the headache off of you. And they also, like I said, they save you on your taxes. So go to collective.com to make sure that you sign up using my code, which is on the screen right now, so that you can start saving money and stop trying to be your own bookkeeper. You did not get into your business to do your own taxes. It's well worth the investment. Now, the next step that we're going to go into, and the final step for this episode, is action plans, custom solutions for you. Now, I kind of gave you guys a little bit of a sneak peek when I was talking about my goals and how my action plan was this is how I'm going to pay these things off and this is when, but I definitely wanted to take it a step farther, and obviously I just got really excited when I was talking about it. So, rather than re-recording that, I wanted to flashback and say, okay, obviously, those are my goals. I knew I wanted to pay things down. And then the action plans were how much I was going to be saving a month and how much I was going to be paying down and how I plan to actually save and pay things down. The other thing that I want to highlight is in action plans, we typically look at habits. So we look at, what habits are you proud of? What habits would you like to change? How do you work best? What things do you let distract you? What are your current strengths? What are your weaknesses? What is something you do daily? What is something you want to do each day, but often don't? And even with that, I got really, really clear on what are my habits. So I may notice, okay, I'm spending this much on fast food, and I am not going to tell you to stop drinking your Starbucks coffee or to never go get a burger from your favorite burger place. But I was looking at how often I was doing things like that and looking at cheaper alternatives. I got really lucky, which sounds weird to say, but because the pandemic hit when I was in the midst of this goal and like trying to start making things happen, like literally it was March when everything kind of shut down of last year, and it was March when I signed the agreement to actually buy the house that I ended up getting this year. That was this year. So it was a year where everything was kind of weird. Everything was kind of shut down. We were limited. But why I said I got lucky is because obviously I didn't want to be out. So I wasn't spending money at bars. Yes, I was spending money at the liquor store, but not as much as you would at bars. I wasn't eating out as much. That wasn't a social activity anymore. You didn't just meet your friends at Chili's on a Friday night because you didn't necessarily feel safe, or maybe the inside wasn't even open. So I started making some of the meals that I loved so much. I started finding there I love chicken parmesan, and if you go to Olive Garden, their chicken parmesan is like $16. I found the best, and I had to try a few before I found the one that I'm obsessed with. I found the best like frozen chicken parmesan that I can actually heat up in the oven. So it tastes amazing, and I'm always super satisfied with it. But I started to look at these little habits that I could just change. That how I could roll, do like kind of do my own version of Acorns, the app that like rolls up the amount and saves, but like how I could just find little ways to save or little ways to put more on um the saving or the credit cards. So even like with the stimulus checks, I know a lot of people who just went like blew that or had fun, which I do think was the purpose, was to stimulate the economy. But I was like, oh, okay, bet. I got this 1400 or 14, yeah, 1400 stimulus check. I'm going to put at least 1,000 on this Best Buy credit card or whatever it may be. So just looking at the little habits and the little tweaks that I could make so that it didn't feel so daunting, and just small things that I could do, and limiting, okay, versus me going to go pick up this food. If I was going to order out, how much am I spending more if I use Favor, which is kind of like Uber Eats here in Texas? If I was going to do that, okay, there's a tip, there's the markup that they always have on there, there's the service fee. Like, how much could I save if I just went and got it myself? And did it make sense to go get it myself, or was I spending more gas? So there were just like little things like that that I started creating these new habits. And it's so funny, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I did a story a couple of like maybe a month or two ago, and I was saying how the whole mindset of getting ready to buy a house and knowing that I wanted to save and pay off debt has stuck with me even though I've accomplished the goal, because I was at home, which I love, and I saw a basket and I was like, "Oh my god, a picnic basket." And I was like, "You don't even like outs." I was like, "The only thing you like less than being outside is eating outside. Why do you need a picnic basket?" So I didn't buy it, even though it was kind of like this impulse buy I wanted to buy. And that's not saying I definitely didn't feel deprived during this journey, but I was more aware. And so being aware of just these little bitty habits, and they do build over time. So when you say, okay, let me notice this, let me observe this, let me be aware of this, then it kind of becomes a reflex. Like, versus putting that basket in my cart, I was like, do you really need this? Are you really going to use this? Like, I have a cooler if I did decide to go on a picnic that could fit so much. I use this cooler every single time that I go visit my family so I can have like my green juices and everything. Like, I didn't need it, and I became aware of it because I built that habit over time, just doing small little tweaks and being very, very observant in just the way that I was reacting with money, the way I was treating money, how I was spending money. So creating that action plan and having the big and the small in there is a great way to see success, because when you have the balance of, yes, I'm going to pay $500 a month on Best Buy until it's at $200, and also, when possible, I'm going to go pick up my food versus spending about $10 more on delivery, then those little things add up over time and you're seeing big results with the big thing, but you're also building smaller results that will add up eventually with the smaller things. So just setting these action plans into place and knowing what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and just giving yourself room and giving yourself grace. That is one of the thing that I tell my clients, both coaching and project management or online business management, like my clients in all areas, I always remind them to give themselves grace because you will slip up and there will be one day where you just are too tired. You don't want to put on a bra. You don't want to go pick up food. And so you're going to pay that extra $10 to get it delivered and to say, okay, this was the exception, not the rule. It's okay. I did what I needed to do in that moment. I still like I went and got a massage. I did whatever it was that I needed to do, even though it maybe seemed like it was not good for the goal. But sometimes you have to take care of yourself over the goal and just giving yourself the grace when you do that and just knowing that this is the exception and not the rule. All that to say, I also want to, as I talk, more comes out, more comes out. I also was thinking about this, like, you get to decide what your values are. And if you, let's say, you have a big financial goal because you want to retire your spouse or you want to bring on a VA, you don't want to be suffering to make this goal happen. And if you, let's say you have chronic back pain and you know that you like to get a massage once a month and that it physically helps you, it helps you be more productive, it helps you not be in pain all the time, then include that in your action plan. You don't have to get rid of all the things that you love. Like I said, I'm going to tell you to get rid of your Starbucks coffee. I'm going to tell you maybe like don't put so much sugar in it. My sister is a Starbucks addict, and I always tell her, I'm like, you need to get. She gets like 8 pumps of classic, and this is neither here nor there. But her whole order, I'm like, so I'm not going to tell you to give up the things that you love. I'm going to tell you just to be smart about how you're indulging in them. Maybe it looks like, okay, I know I want to get a massage every month, but the place that I go is kind of expensive. Maybe I'm just going to take, a few minutes and look at some other options to see if there's a place that's cheaper but still has good quality and I'm still getting what I need. So that is my rant, my excitement about the actions because it's so great to have the clarity and the knowledge of what's going on, what you want, what needs to change. But until you actually take action, nothing's going to change. And it's important to have not to just take action without intention. When you make these action plans, you're setting intention behind the actions that you take. And you know that they're going to lead to the desired outcome. And if they don't, we're going to talk about that in the next video. So thank you guys so, so, so much for listening to this episode. I I love this methodology so much. It's completely changed my life and the way that I work with people and the way that I get what I want. So definitely if you are interested in doing this with me one-on-one, you can sign up for the Balanced Business Experience and we will work together for 3 months to help you get to your goal. All right, I will catch you next time. Bye. This has been Creatives Crushing Anxiety. For more podcast episodes, visit diadarling.com. Did you enjoy this episode? Then go ahead and leave a review on iTunes. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. Catch you next time. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me. Ugh. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining me on this blah, 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 blah.